So we're going to take a step back. We're going to talk a little bit more about coterminal angles. We talked about them before in the previous lesson. We actually had to graph it, and we talked about what coterminal angles look like on the graph. And we basically decided they look exactly the same on the graph. Now, there can be other directions, and in other directions, it may say find a positive and a negative version of the exact same angle. So find a positive and a negative coterminal to angle, say, 70 degrees. So basically to do that, you're basically going to either add or subtract 360 to 70 degrees. All right, so again, you basically add or subtract 360 from it. So that's 70 degrees. And I want to find a coterminal to it, 70 degrees. I can add 360 to it. And you plug in the calculator 70 plus 360, and you should get 430 degrees. So this is one coterminal to it. So this is a positive coterminal. So that's a positive coterminal to it. If I want to find a negative coterminal, I would basically take 70 and 7 degrees, and I subtract 360 from it. So if I subtracted 360 from 7 degrees, you wind up having negative 290 degrees. So here we are, and we have a negative coterminal to the exact same angle. So that's a positive and a negative version of the exact same angle. So positive 70 is basically equivalent of 430 degrees or negative 290 degrees. And I could prove that. If I wanted to prove that, basically what I would do is I could use sine of 70 degrees. So if you pause the video right now and take your calculator out and type in sine of 70 degrees, and make sure your calculator is in degree mode. All right, so change the mode and put it in degree mode and type in sine of 70 degrees. And after you pause the video, tell me what you wind up getting. So you probably find a sine of 70 is the same thing as 0.9367. So that's pretty much what sine of 70 degrees is. And if you check it out and you plug in your calculator sine of 430 degrees, and if you pause it again, you plug in calculator sine of negative 290 degrees. All right, so it's going to be negative now. But if you plug in either one of those into degrees, what you should find is, right now, pause the video again and tell me what you wind up getting. Because if you check it out, you should find that, I'll pause. And you should have found that this was equal to 0.9367, and this is also equal to 0.9367. So no matter what you do, you still get the exact same thing, which is 0.9. This didn't really come on there very well, so put it down here, 0.9367. So basically you get the exact same output. So I can plug in sine of 70, sine of 430, sine of negative 290, and I get the exact same output every time. Meaning that each of those angles are equal to each other. Each of those angles are coterminal to each other. So I had some students in the past figure out, well, I can prove it's coterminal by plugging in sine or cosine or tan of any of those angles. And if I don't get the same output, well, they couldn't be coterminal. Because coterminal angles, you should get the exact same output. So this is a nice thing to know. So usually, a lot of times they give you these coterminal angles as degrees because you're more comfortable with degrees, you've seen it more. But sometimes they give it to you as radians. So in this example, they said find a positive and negative coterminal to power of 4 radians. So basically what you're going to do is, basically if we already know that pi from previous lessons, pi is equal to 180 degrees. Well, 2 pi is equal to 360 degrees because it's just double that. So since that's the case, instead of adding 360 to it, because it's in radians, instead you add 2 pi to it over and over. So what you could do is you can either add 2 pi to it. Some students just really hate working with fractions or whatever. So they would just change this into degrees, then change it back into radians later. Well, that's fine. You know, some of the angles, you know, like we already know that pi over 4 is 45 degrees from previous lessons. But I'm going to show you how to do it without having to do that. Add the stuff to it, and that's how, if you're more comfortable with that, fine. But if you really just want to find out what it is without having to do that, you simply take pi over 4, and then you add 2 pi to it. So since I have pi over 4 and add 2 pi to it, you just also know from previous lessons that if I have to add fractions, I really want to make that number this 2 pi have the same denominator as this one. So right now, it doesn't have a denominator, so I can make it 1. So it still needs to be a 4. So in order to make that a 4, what you probably do is, you probably multiply it by 4 over 4. So that's your unit multiplier. And what we know is if I did multiply that by 4 over 4, you should wind up having pi over 4, and that's going to be plus 8 pi over 4. So I have pi over 4 plus 8 pi over 4. Well, that's going to be 9 pi over 4. So a positive coterminal to it is 9 pi over 4. If I want to find a negative coterminal to it, I'll still take pi over 4, and instead of adding 2 pi, I'll subtract 2 pi from it, so I get a negative angle. And what we decided was that 2 pi is the same thing as having 8 pi over 4, because that's what it reduces back to. 8 over 4 is a 2 pi. So if I subtracted that, you should wind up having negative 7 pi over 4. So this would be a negative coterminal. So that's a positive version, and this is the negative version of that exact same angle. So pi over 4 is equivalent to this, and is also coterminal or equivalent to that angle.